nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Even Tom triumph.
Most important. I do not have any announcements for this morning. Board Clerk, do I have any announcements for this morning? No, I do not. Move forward with the consent agenda items. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without further discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested member of the public may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed for further discussion prior to the board's taking action. Does any board member wish to pull any item on the consent agenda?
Yes, item 7, please.
Okay, any other board member have any item on the consent agenda they wish to have pulled? Is there any member of the public here present this morning that has any item on the consent agenda, items 1 through 8 inclusive, they wish to have discussed with or by the board prior to the board's taking action?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see...
Okay, excuse me. Go ahead, George.
Good morning. My name is George Fry. I'm from Angels Camp, and I'd like to see number 3 and number 6 pulled, please. Thank you.
Okay. Gary, what did you have?
Also number 6.
I'm Will Moore from Valley Springs. I'd like to pull number 4, please.
Non-controversial.
Okay, any other members of the public wish to pull any item?
Let's pull over.
Seeing none, Chair will entertain a motion on the balance of the consent agenda, as presented.
I approve the correspondence as submitted.
Actually, that would be items 1, 2, 5, and 8 under the is that correct? Okay, on the balance of the consent agenda, I have a motion by Supervisor Callaway, a second by Supervisor Tofanelli. Through the board discussion, all in favor to indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. We'll go to item 3. This was pulled by George Fry, a resolution to approve an agreement for participation in the Federal Apportionment Exchange and State March Program and authorize the chair to execute the agreement for Regional Surface Transportation Program funds for fiscal year 2010-2011 and the amount of $256,676 is a Public Works item. George, what is your question?
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to know what this funding is going to be used for in terms of the Public Works Department and the County of Calaveras. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody from Public Works? There's Tom.
Morning, Honorable Chair, members of the board, Tom Garcia with Public Works. The short answer is roads. We're going to be using it for the maintenance and construction of roads within Calaveras County. This RSDP swap is it's an annual item that comes before the board. It's a swap of federal funds to state funds so that we don't have to meet the federal reporting requirements. It's a pretty much routine matter. We do it every year. But it will be used for roads and road maintenance.
Okay. Any other public comments on item 3? Seeing none, Chair is open for a motion on item 3.
Make a motion.
I have a motion by Supervisor Spellman. I have a second by Supervisor Walensky for the board discussion. All in favor so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. We will go forward then to item 4, a minute order. Authorizing the chair of the board to sign the agreement between Calaveras County Superior Court and Calaveras County Behavioral Health Services Substance Abuse Program to provide outpatient drug counseling services for the drug court and youth treatment programs in the amount of $22,010 for the period July 1st, 2010 to August 31st, 2011. Will, you pulled this. What is your question?
I'm only interested in a point of information. I happen to know some people who are involved in this program on both sides of it, and I'm wondering, this program has been whacked by about 50% in the past, and I'm wondering if this is another whack, this 22,000 is another cut from that.
We'll get an answer to your question.
Morning, Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health Services.
and substance abuse program. No, this is not a cut. This is generally the amount we get each year to provide the drug court services. We use some other funding as well to provide those services.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this issue? Chair's open for a motion on item 4.
I have a question for Rita, real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Rita?
Yes.
This is off subject, but since you're here and I'm swamped.
I've been here a lot this morning.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, this is one of the things on my list of stuff. I had a call from a constituent that was wanting her daughter to attend an Al-Anon program that's given at the Good Samaritan Church in Valley Springs. She was told, supposedly a message I received by behavioral health, someone there told her that her daughter could not attend because her daughter didn't have a problem with substance abuse.
No, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
Al-Anon is a voluntary self-help group in the community for family members of somebody who's got a problem with alcohol or drugs.
Yeah.
So
apparently she had a father that had issues and died, and she wants some
sounds very
support and help
appropriate.
like that.
Should go to that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So I'm maybe a little misinformation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what.
Well, thank you for clarification. So when I return a phone call, I'll be able to tell her in the affirmative.
Absolutely. It's an open meeting. Anyone can attend.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chair's open for a motion on item 4.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion by Supervisor Walensky, a second by Supervisor Callaway. Further board discussion. All in favor so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the Board of Supervisors. Moving forward to item 6, a resolution to establish the fiscal year 2011-2012 schedule of fees for land classification for property-related solid waste parcel fees. This is a public works issue. It was pulled by George. What's your question, George?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My question has to do with the fact that I would like to know what these land classification solid waste parcel fees are, and I would like to share with the community of Calaveras County that it costs $25 to take this little old lady's dryer that I took to the dump yesterday. And when I got there, another person that was making the dump run said, you can go to the auto dismantling place on Highway 49 before you get to Sonora on the left-hand side, and they will take it for free. So I want everybody in the county to know that they can save at least $25 or more.
Okay, if you need the clarifications, George, why don't you just check with Public Works at the end of the meeting or whenever tomorrow, and they'll give you an outline of what the classifications are.
Mr. Chairman, I just assume have it put on the record here and now, since that it was on the agenda.
Okay, thank you, George, for your comments. What do you have, Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary Caldwell, Valley Springs. First of all, I understand that this is Mr. Jones' last board meeting this morning. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was July 1.
Couple more.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for your service anyway, and wish you well on whatever endeavors you have in the future. I wanted to, once again, you may remember this PowerPoint presentation by the Public Works Director a couple weeks ago with respect to the solid waste program. And if I'm interpreting these numbers correctly, it looks like there's a $1.1 million shortfall. And with the continuation of I want to emphasize that word, of $150 a year per parcel, that doesn't address the shortfall. His options down on the lower right here included reduction in services to close underperforming transfer stations, reduce days of operation of transfer station, eliminate services at transfer station. Now, I understand the first two, close the transfer stations and reduce days. Now, I've been at the taking trash to the, I call it Chili Gulch, but I guess they call it the San Andreas station over here. And I just was there a couple of weeks ago, and there were 8 cars lined up to use the transfer station there. So I don't see any point to certainly not closing that one. And I don't know what eliminate services at transfer station. I don't know what services other than they have a roll-off box there for recycled items. The other options include increased revenues. It says increased parcel fee, which is not being proposed this morning by the Public Works Department, and increase gate fees. Now, I'm committing heresy here because this morning I'm going to recommend that you increase the parcel fee. I don't know if the numbers provided by the Public Works Department are accurate or not, but there's a $1.1 million shortfall he claims, or there will be in 11-12. And you need to address that. And gate fees, increasing gate fees is not going to do it. And I expressed this opinion to the CAO's office a couple of weeks ago. There are no upsides to gate fees. There are only downsides. And the options with respect to gate fees, if you look at gate fees, or you can't because you probably don't have this, but gate fees amounted to $176,000. The shortfall is $1.1 million. You'd have to increase the gate fees or collect 6 times what you're presently collecting. And I can tell you, when you increase the gate fees, fewer people will come to the gate. They will dump alongside the road. My experience with the gate fees and running landfill is that people tend to litter the roads. They dump on private property. My wife and I still own property in Amador County. We have hauled away 6 bags of garbage, 2 laundry washers, and a computer monitor that people just dumped on our property alongside the road. And we paid to dispose of those. And if there is an inefficient way to collect revenue, it's got to be gate fees. You got to have a person standing there all day long. You're paying for somebody to stand there. You got to monitor them. You can't just say, okay, well, we know it's not going to be 2 for the county and 1 for me, and you can't assume that. You got to audit the books. It's so expensive and costly that it's not the way to collect revenue. And it certainly is not reliable. At least with parcel fees, you know that there are 25,000 parcels or whatever they are in the county. You know that every year you're going to get your $180. My suggestion, it was suggested by the Public Works Director at the budget session that he needs about another $50 on top of the existing fee. My suggestion is that you increase the fee somewhere between $40 and $50 to offset the deficit you have and the loss of this $176,000 in gate fees that you wouldn't otherwise have. And people, when they go to the landfill and someone says to them, well, you have to pay extra, like George,
You need to wrap it up, Gary.
okay, you have to pay extra. It's like double jeopardy. I'm already paying $150. I go to the landfill and I have to pay another $25, or in my case, I had to pay for bags of yard waste. I mean, that's crazy to have to pay again. And my suggestion is you have big signs, because the only purpose in my mind of the person at the gate house is to direct people to where to dump. If you're not collecting gate fees, that's all they do. Because I've never been checked for residency in 18 years. Okay. So my suggestion is, and again, you don't hear me very often say increase fees, but I suggest that you increase the fee to at least $190 per parcel per year, or as the Public Works Director recommends, $200, if that's what it takes to...
We will have further discussions on that, obviously, and I think your comments are appropriate, but I think you need to wait for the study session when we have that discussion. Well, at some point we will discuss the fees, and at that point it's not scheduled, but we are...
Oh, it's not scheduled. Oh, okay.
And I have a recommendation to the board to solve the solid waste shortfall, and that's to shut all the transfer stations except the one at Red Hill and in Copperopolis. Okay, let us proceed. I'll entertain a motion on item 6.
And I'll let you know where the address of his property is. In case I have a washer or something I need to know.
What was wrong with that? That would solve it. I'll entertain a motion on item 6. Come on, gang.
I'd like to make a comment on item 6. Since this gentleman let everybody know that you can take appliances somewhere in Sonora for no charge, we also have a facility in our county in Valley Springs Recycling. They also take appliances for no charge, or for $15 if it has refrigerants in it. So people don't need to take their appliance all the way to Sonora. Cool. So we do have one here in the county as well.
Thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on item 6.
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Callaway. I have a second by Supervisor Tofinelli. Do we have further board discussion? All in favor, so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. We have, the next up is item 7, a minute order. Well, before I read it, is there anybody here that wishes to address the board on item 7 from the public? My suggestion is, it's been pulled, I'd like to continue it to the end of the regular agenda so we can get through the budget. We have all kinds of department heads and staff, and I think that's going to be a rather lengthy discussion, quite
But
frankly.
we also have...
Okay, we have people from the Fire and State Council and others that have come here.
Okay, well then we'll do item 7, but I think that's going to take a considerable period of time.
Well,
So,
what's the board's wish?
because you want to do that, or you want to get...
No, I would like to see it continued for 2 weeks. It's my opinion on it.
Well, let's have a discussion, and then I'd like some discussion on it before we just continue it.
Unfortunately, this has just made the deadline. It's been put off for a number of weeks, and
If you want to discuss it under the consent agenda, we'll discuss it under consent.
We can go into the thing, but it's going to take quite a while. I'm not prepared to vote for it, then. I'll tell you right now, I'm not prepared to vote for it.
Okay, well, I think we should still have the discussion. The question is, where in the agenda should we have the discussion?
well, why don't we ask the people who came here specifically?
Well, only 2 people raised their hands, and okay, well, okay.
All right, well...
Bill and Peter, they stay through the whole meeting, and we have all the department heads and staff, and we have county government sitting out here.
Okay, let's do
Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, then item 7's been pulled, and we'll return to item 7. Right before we do review of correspondence and reports and various matters of concern, either right before or right after. But we'll put it down there. So don't let me forget item 7 when we get there. We'll move forward then to our regular agenda item, our 9:10 a.m. Items, public comments, 5 minutes per person. Comments shall be limited to items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors. I would also like to state at this time that we, for the remainder of the regular agenda, under public comments on any of those items will be limited to 3 minutes. So right now we're under public comments. Good morning.
Good morning. Krista Thompson, Mental Health Services Act Coordinator for Behavioral Health Services. I just wanted to let the board and our entire county know that we are now offering, on the subject of free offerings in our county, we are now offering 6 community support groups throughout the county. This has been, we've been working on this for about 9 months. We're very excited to be announcing this. We have 6 groups. One is for veterans and their families, called Creatively Supporting the Transition Home. That will be in the Arnold area. The next one is a women's group in San Andreas, and that will be, all of these will be starting mid-July, August. Mind, Body, and Soul is the name of the women's group in San Andreas. There's another women's group called From Trauma to Triumph for victims of traumatic experience. That one will be an Angels Camp. We have a group for teens. Creative Expression is the name of that group. That one will be in San Andreas. And then we have a group for kids called the Kids Group, and that will be in West Point, and that's connected to West Point Elementary. So if anyone has any questions regarding these groups, again, they're starting mid-July through August, and they're in 10-week cycles, and so they'll be finished up before the holidays. So if anyone has any questions, they can contact us at Behavioral Health Services, and we'll connect you with the facilitator for each group. The number for Behavioral Health Services is 754-6525. And if anyone has any more specific questions, they can always contact me at that number as well. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, any other public comments, please come forward at this time.
David Tuno, Rancho Calaveras. Not that long ago, each board member was sent a link to an article on the internet. In fact, I think it was a video, probably a YouTube, about a town in Georgia called Sandy Springs that was outsourcing much of its services to save money. And I was prompted by last Friday's Enterprise, I'll call it the Walensky edition of the Enterprise, featuring a lot of novel ideas and good ideas for thought. that the county can consider to save money. And prompted by that, I went on the internet and I found that, and I have copies of it for everybody.
The Walensky edition.
A county in Maryland also looking at outsourcing, using the Georgetown, the one I just mentioned, as an example. In fact, those county supervisors are going to the Georgetown to talk to those people to find out how they do things. They hired a consultant to find out how much they could save by outsourcing. Now, in their situation, this is Frederick County in Maryland, and I have a couple of extra copies if you guys are interested. They're a larger county. They've got 2,215 full-time employees, full and part-time employees, and they've got 528 in what they call core services. The core, and I don't know what the core services are, but those would be the positions that would be targeted for outsourcing. In their situation, as you can see in the first paragraph, they're looking to save, according to their consultant, $109 million over a 5-year contract period. Now, if we were to assume that our county could save proportionately the same amount, this is just for the sake of discussion. We don't know what their core services are. We don't know how that relates to the numbers in our county. But if it were true that our county could save proportionately as much, that would be $4.36 million a year, which is almost the entire $4.5 million that I understand from the article that you folks are trying to find, trying to fill that gap. And this is done without cutting services. It's just transferring it. You have people doing the jobs, maybe even the same people doing the jobs, but under different auspices. In the Georgetown example, they did a one-stop shop approach to it. They hired CH2 & Hill, a knowledgeable company, a one-stop shop that then contracted out all these other various services. So they kind of took the easy way administratively to do it. We might save $4.36 million, we might save a little less, we might even save more. But in as much as you're looking at ways to save money and you need to do that, there's a nice big chunk of money that can be saved by a method that's been proven. Other counties are doing it, cities are doing it, and I think it's time to look at the ideas that Mr. Walensky outlined and this concept to close that big gap, not just for the immediate future, but ongoing. And lastly, I would comment that it was given some attention in the article, the employee benefits packages, and I think it's time that, and you can read about this all over the nation, not just California, counties and cities, but the compensation packages for public employees, I'll term them a kind of a gold-plated retirement packages and benefits packages. There's a lot of us out here that thought that they were never appropriate, and certainly now is the time to look at converting those kinds of packages into something that's much more realistic, much more like what the people out here are facing, providing for our own retirement, Social Security, 401ks, IRAs, and that sort of thing, to take the burden off the taxpayer to provide those benefits. So those two things I hope that you'll consider. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
George Fry, I have a question first. Is the budget going to be acted upon today?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll save my comments until that point. I would like to piggyback on what this gentleman just said. I told Supervisor Walensky before the meeting this morning that it was a great idea, and if you look up and down the state of California for the last 15 years, cities have been contracting with counties for law enforcement. I made this point last October at a candidates night for city council, and you would think that I had said a terrible thing. But the city is $1 million in the red, and they could save approximately $1 million. So this is the kind of thinking that we need to have ongoing discussions about. We have to do a better job for all of us taxpayers and be even more fiscally conservative. Now, I'm going to be speaking in terms of the budget later, and I may say something that in some people's mind may be a reverse of what I'm saying now, but I'll explain it at that point. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
Peter Reyes, Rancho Calaveras. I want to give a compliment to the supervisors who wrote a little article. It's way past due. Also, I would like to make an observation through this budget hearing. To me, it's very disturbing, the animosity between your elected official and other elected officials in the county. And to me, it's kind of disappointing, since you folks all believe that you're such a representative of the county to all these regional governments, all these different organizations. But my God, you can't get along with your next door neighbor who's elected by the whole county. So that looks very, very disappointing and disturbing. Also, so the regional government, and you can't get along with local elected officials, that's a reflection of your diplomacy and trust. The other thing I'd like to make is I'm glad that somebody brought up this pension program, because I'm sure you've been notified that the Bills Court ruled that all these retirement funds and stuff are public now, and I'm sure you'll be more than happy so all your constituents can fully appreciate all the sacrifice to all those homeless and hungry and disabled and senior citizens, how you handle your pensions. Because all those pensions agreements, you're not exactly welcome public taxpayers' input. So what you did on your own without being observed, now it's observable. Also, I would like to see one of these days the actual growth or loss between line and staff of this county. All that administration costs and went up compared to the cost and the number of line workers. You know, the folks down there who work at the desk, compared to the growth of this administration. I mean, I realize it's very, very important to hire administrators to figure out a way to take it out of my left pocket instead of right pocket. But your constant secrecy of the source of the funds, even though you state that, hey, no effect on the general fund, the general budget, but you fail to disclose where that money is coming from in detail. And that's some issues coming up later on. Who exactly paying for those grants? The credibility of the source of those grants. And along that line, when you consider the budget later on, I like in general that just as in a report, Brother Brown in Sacramento will be dumping on local county jails with no compensation for it. Now I got a simple solution for all that. Ship them over to San Francisco. They'll be more than happy to take care of them. I mean, that's perfect way. They want that water, they want jailmates and everything, so that's would be a good example, folks. Anyway, thank you very much.
You're always entertaining, Peter. Okay, any other public comments?
Mr. Chairman, Honorable Supervisors, I'm Al Segala, Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and my compliments to Steve in the special Steve edition of the Enterprise. You put a lot of thought in your plan, and tried to analyze what you're doing and where you're coming from. And I have, our Taxpayer Association has a little different approach that perhaps would be considered. Steve is right in that it is time for new ideas. Also, a number of changes he proposes do make sense, such as cross-training and charging reasonable fees for services. There are concerns that need to be addressed about consolidation and creating a 5-member cabinet. We have had recent experience, well, an unpleasant experience in consolidation of the Public Works, Planning, and Building departments into a Community Development department. Although this actual blunder was finally reversed after a negative grand jury report, it resulted in a massive loss of taxpayer money and extensive violation of property rights. Perhaps the problem is in the approach. If we assume that all government services are of equal value, as the recent budget and Steve's proposal assumes, then a shuffle of departments may or may not have some value. On the other hand, if we ask the question of what do we want from government, then a new fresh approach and plan likely will emerge. Our Constitution suggests that the purpose of government is the protection of the basic rights of the people. This has been further identified as the right to life, liberty, and property. A new positive approach could involve prioritizing all functions of county government and by doing so, we would develop an identification of core services, such as law enforcement, courts, jails, fire protection, and public works. The city of Sonora and the county of Tuolumne use that approach, and it seems to be more effective. The forced unionization of public employees has had some negative consequences for the employee and the taxpayer, including high retirement system liabilities and creating conflict of interest among public decision makers. This may be part of the reason many communities have discovered success by contracting out services such as Sandy Springs, which David talked about. They contracted out practically everything with about a 50% savings to the taxpayer. They used a company called CH2M-Hill, an international firm that oversees and manages day-to-day operations of the city. Why not check this out? In summary, to serve the taxpayer, why not identify what we want from county government, prioritize functions, and contract out as much as possible.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Karen Elliott from Arnold, and I'd also like to thank Steve for spreading some enlightenment on county government, some ways we can solve some of the problems. And I want to say that I made this decision before I ever got to the TOT, which has to do with money for the Calaveras Humane Society. So thank you, Steve, and I hope this goes farther than just the article in the paper, which, by the way, was very well written.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Ferguero, and the Program Director for the Resource Connection Calaveras Crisis Center. And I really don't know if it's appropriate for me to address this now or more appropriate in the budget session. I figured 5 minutes is better than 3 minutes, so I figured I'd do it. I want to publicly voice my concern, and I think concern is not a big enough word. I think it's distress and maybe terror in the fact that we might be cutting sworn law enforcement officers. As you know, the Crisis Center serves victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And particularly in the case of domestic violence, response time is something that is so important to limiting the effect of the trauma on the family that is involved in this crime. When we have victims of domestic violence come into the center, we talk to them about a safety plan. The main thing we want them to do is feel safe and use the resources available to them to keep their families safe and to keep them from being further traumatized by what's going on in the home, with what's being perpetrated against them by someone that they trust and they love. The law enforcement is a big part of that safety plan. You
we ask them to make sure that they know how to exit the house. Make sure that they don't go into a room where there might be weapons. Have a safe place to go. Who will you call? Have all your medications ready so you can flee. And above all, call law enforcement. But what if they can't respond? What if they can't get there in enough time to help that person leave? What if they can't get there in time to limit the amount of trauma to that victim? That terrifies me. These people don't have many resources, and that's why they're in these situations many times. So to limit those resources to them further, especially in a time when the economy is affecting the crime rate, I can tell you we have, for the first time since I've been at the crisis center, which is 9 years, we have a waiting list for shelter. Families are falling apart, and they really need the county to support them. They need law enforcement to support them. They need to be able to trust that someone is going to be there when they need them. I know that you guys have to make some really hard decisions, and I do not wish I was you, that's for sure. And I know you'll make the right decision, but I just felt like this was something you needed to hear and something that you need to think about when you make these decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
Good morning. My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm from Double Springs. You know me for the past couple years as a home care worker. I've also represented a union called SEIU-UHW for the past couple of years, which I cannot express how much disappointment I have in this union. This union has consistently collected about $7,000 a month from our hardworking home care workers and has given very little back to our community. There has been months gone by when we do not have a representative from our union participating in our county. In the past year, I took on a personal crusade to try and get more involvement in my union. I sponsored a pizza night for the past year in Valley Springs. I have made hundreds of phone calls at my expense. I have driven hundreds of miles at my expense. I have made countless copies of material that my union wished to distribute and have never been reimbursed. In fact, for the past 3 months, my union has failed to return a phone call that I have made repeatedly, not just to my union rep, but also to the higher-ups. SEIU-UHW has been embroiled in controversy for the past 6 or 8 years because of misappropriation and crooks in the union, and I don't think the representation we have now is any better. I'm pretty disgusted with our union rep and the amount of response that has been given to home care workers in Calaveras County. And to me in particular, I'm taking a personal affront that the people that I have interacted with for the past 3 or 4 years are not returning phone calls. I'm not saying this as you have any power over this. I just want you to be aware that there's something else sick and wrong going on in the home care division. Not just the public authority, not just the advisory committee, and not just the overall program that's getting its the rug pulled out from under it. But there's something sick and wrong going on when the people that are not being, the people that need service, their hours are being cut, their wages are being cut, and there's going to be a big hole, and I have more to say, but my time is limited, and I will be back next week. Any questions about that?
Thank you, Bonnie.
I got plenty more to say.
Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
Joe Kelly. Last night I attended the LAFCO meeting. Mr. Tron, 2 weeks ago, when I asked you to recuse yourself on 2 different agenda items that were land use planning issues, you said you gave a look as if you didn't know what it was about, and you also said no. Well, it's your sphere of influence, your 49 acres that is involved in the City of Angels Camp's general plan sphere of influence, and the 651 acres that have been included in that without the people's really knowing about it. Now, I have a great concern of agriculture. In this county's general plan, the old general plan and now the lagging new general plan, and anywhere we look, it's preserve agriculture. Where's the outcry from this board? What's this board done to stop this? And to help the people that are being drawn into this sphere of influence of the city against their wishes. This is unreal. Mr. Tryon, it's my understanding you've been in negotiations and talks with the city since 2002, up until now. It has also come to pass that the city has passed their general plan and their sphere of influence, and now they're going backtracking to go and get the approval of LAFCO, which, by the way, LAFCO did not allow very much public comment on the sphere of influence last night. This is a problem. It also states, and it's in the mission statement also of the LAFCO, preserve agriculture, yet nobody seems to be bothered about agriculture. But going back, there was supposed to have been, in the rules, the way it works, is when they go through their complete scheme of things to get from point A to the end of the road, they're supposed to come back and talk to you, the county, about it. Has that ever been done in this general plan and sphere of influence that they passed last year or the year before? Has the board ever been involved in it? These are questions that have to be answered, folks, because I believe there's a severe conflict of interest with Mr. Tryon. He has passed what is called in this county, nicknamed the 40-acre and a mule resolution, where no less than 40 acres can be subdivided unless it has public water and sewer. There's other issues he's voted upon that I expressed a few weeks ago when I came from the LAFCO meeting. I believe it was in April. So I think this needs to be brought to a point. It needs to be investigated. I, for one, am going to ask the grand jury about it. I, for one, am going to send a letter to the FCC, or I'm sorry, the FPPC, to investigate it and see if there is a conflict of interest here. It's time it is looked into and taken care of, that he needs to recuse himself. Until it is, every time I come and there's a land use thing on it and he may have a vote on it, I'm going to ask him to recuse himself until the people of this county get the idea that there's a problem, if not a potential problem here, and it needs to be cured. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other?
Mr. Walensky, I appreciate what you did in that, and I agree with some of the things in there, and I don't agree with some of them. It needs to be worked on, but it is a good idea. Thank you.
Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson, McCallamy Hill. Just wanted to ask some clarification as to a discussion that was held during the correspondence and your meeting involvement for the coming week that was held last week. There was some bantering going back and forth about having 2 meetings. And of course everybody would be available for 2 meetings a month. And everyone was going to be available when the other people were not. Sort of I'll be available on weeks 1 and 3, and someone was going to be available on 2 and 4. That wasn't referring to the Board of Supervisors' weekly meetings, was it?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's your plan to not hold meetings weekly, but to hold them every other week?
Well, basically twice a month.
And my comment would be on that I would think that there was enough going on within the community, especially as there are going to be, cutbacks, I suspect, and we're going through tough times here, that it would seem to me that a meeting held once a week would be certainly solicits quite a lot of comment and action items, and I'd be concerned if they were to be cut to twice a...
We have not yet implemented that, but I think that will be up for discussion, probably under correspondence, et cetera. I suspect something will need to come back to the board in some form for the board to take some action to establish that. So that would be the appropriate time to give your comments, but if you do them today, and that's fine.
I say that because I'm going to be not available for the early, most of July.
Okay.
And I suspect there may be other people that may want to see it continue on a weekly basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? If so, please come forward.
Well, Chairman Tom, I think that the...
George, didn't you speak under public comments?
Yeah, but I have a minute left. I looked at my watch.
You speak once. We're not going to have people just sort of get up and talk about what other public comments are. I mean, you've spoken once, you get once.
Okay.
Any other public comments? Okay, that completes public comments. And we'll move forward now to our 9:45 a.m. Behavioral Health, Public Works, Auditor, Human Resources, and Board Matters. The first up is a minute order, item 10, a minute order authorizing agreement between Doctors Medical Center of Modesto and Calaveras County Behavioral Health Services, mental health program for psychiatric treatment services in amount not to exceed $75,000 for the period of 1 July 2011 to June 30th, 2012. This is a behavioral health matter. Do you have anything additional to add?
This is Rita Downs, Director of Behavioral Health Services. I just wanted to take a moment to describe a little bit more about our hospitalization services. You'll see a number of these contracts coming through to your board, hopefully on the consent agenda where it would normally be. But we speak a lot here about the Mental Health Services Act, and I don't get to speak very often except for a question once in a while about our core services. And one of our core services is evaluating persons who are acutely mentally ill, a danger to themselves or others, or unable to care for themselves in the community, commonly known as 5150 evaluations, named for the law that was written to address this population. In the last 12 months, we've actually done 233 full evaluations for 5150s, hospitalizing people, and out of that, we have hospitalized 97, which is roughly a third of the population, and that has stood pretty well standard for the last few years. In the jail, we actually did 109 evaluations, so almost half of them in the jail, a service that we do not charge the jail for. Also, crisis services is another option that we have. Hopefully, if people can use our crisis services, they won't end up in the hospital. So we get about 1,203 calls or crisis contacts a year. People are able to walk into our clinic anytime 8 to 5 or into the emergency room after hours and get crisis services. And so we have seen an increase in the number of crisis services over the last year, and that's not surprising. So we're taking over about a little over 100 calls or contacts every month from people in crisis in our community. So essentially that is it. The other thing that has impacted us over the last couple of years is that we don't have a hospital in our local area anymore. Tuolumne General has closed, so our workers sometimes are at the emergency room for hours and hours and hours finding a bed anywhere from Modesto, Sacramento, Yuba City for our persons who are then transported by ambulance from the emergency room. So just wanted to let you know a little bit more about that service and encourage people to call our office, 754-6525, when they feel they or someone else might be in crisis in their family or their friends. We are available 24/7, and that's a little bit about what we do. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair is open for a motion then on item 10.
Public comment?
Well, usually we do it after I get a second, but okay, if you have some comments, please come forward.
You know, we pay your salaries, so we should have an opportunity for public comment on items that are on the agenda, Tom.
You do, George, you do.
Thank you very much, Tom. You know, your time is limited. I don't think you're going to be back in 2012. Okay, now, my comments have to do with the fact that, not because I have served on the Calaveras County Behavioral Health Board for 15 years, but because I totally support this contract. It is, I serve on the California Mental Health Planning Council, and I've served on that council for 12 years now. And I hear these stories, these scary stories regarding counties trying to find locations to put people who are a danger to themselves or others. And our county, and I like to brag about it because our county is really outstanding with regard to behavioral health services when I look around at the other counties here in the state of California. So I just want to add my public comment to support this contract. Thank you very much, Tom.
Any other public comments?
I'll just address that real quickly. We do contract with a number of hospitals, and so you will be seeing more contracts coming through. We never know how much we're going to spend with any particular hospital because sometimes, you know, it's whatever bed is available. So the contracts are generally more than we'll end up paying each hospital, and they total way more than we would pay in a year, which is a little over $100,000 for hospitalizations. But when you see many contracts coming through, that is just giving us the ability to pay the hospital when we place a person there.
Thank you. Any further board discussion? Any more public discussion?
Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. As good as the mental health department might be, there's an area that is not addressed, and it's traumatic brain injury. When somebody has had cancer, been in a car wreck, fallen down, cracked their skull, and has traumatic brain injury and suffers from psychosis or mental illness due to that, there is no services for that person. There is no counseling, there is no therapy, there is no psychiatrist available to talk to somebody who suffers from mental illness but also has traumatic brain injury. And you know, I've been up here for 2 years hammering away at this issue also. It's incredible to me that a handful of people can fall through the cracks when all the agencies are in place and have resources to address the issue. The agencies can get out of their responsibility by a small clause in the law. I understand that Medi-Cal cannot address this issue, but there are plenty of trained, licensed, experienced therapists, counselors in this county who have never stepped forward and volunteered to offer assistance, and that's something to me is disgraceful, that the people that have the know-how and the means are not willing to step forward and offer that assistance. And I can only say that my client has suffered greatly over the past 4 years not being able to have a counselor or a therapy to deal with his behavioral problems and my behavioral problems dealing with my client. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other comments? Then I'll bring it back to the board. Any additional board comments? Chair is open for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Supervisor Walensky. I have a second by
Second.
Supervisor Callaway. Do I have any further board discussion? All in favor, so indicate by stating aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Move forward to item 11. A resolution authorizing the purchase of certain capital assets for fiscal year 2011, 2012 as recommended in the budget. This is an auditor controller item, and maybe you'll kind of lead us through the budget if you would.
Sure. The list before you for the capital assets was discussed throughout the budget hearings. No changes on the attachment. You'll see the list of capital assets that were recommended, and so we're just looking for approval.
Would the board like to just have the auditor control just lead us through it all and then do a motion at the end, or do you want to do each of these individually?
I'm going to have. I would prefer individual.
Individually? Okay. Okay, is there any board discussion on item 11?
Yeah, I'm going to have some major discussion on this item. So.
Okay.
Oh, you're letting me lead off then? Okay.
You have discussion?
Right. Without further ado, then. All right. I'm not going to make any comments on the Office of Emergency Services because it appears that the funding source for that is Homeland Security, so I'll leave that alone. I'll leave that to the experts on that. With regards to the second and third item, in regards to roads and bridges, public works, and also integrated waste management, I have severe issues with those particular requests. Now, after speaking with various people who put this report together and have knowledge of these things, I understand the idea of timely replacement of vehicles for the county, whether that be pickup trucks or dump trucks or tractors, all those things. I understand it's a wise thing to have a maintenance schedule and a sunset built in to replace those vehicles when they become a certain age or have a certain mileage or those type of things like that. So I want to be very clear that I'm not opposed to having scheduled replacement of vehicles. I think that's a wise thing to do. However, having said that, at this point in time, we're at a fiscal crisis. So as great as a plan as that may be, we need to hit the pause button. Okay? Just put it on hold until such time that it makes more sense financially. The public works, roads, and bridges allocations here, we have pickup trucks, staff vehicles, and one of my favorites here, the $135,000 dump truck / snowplow for $135,000. We acquired 3 of those vehicles last year, and I was opposed to that as a candidate sitting down in the audience where you all are sitting today. And this year, again, I see brought before the board an additional number 4 dump truck / snowplow at $135,000 in this year's budget. So I don't believe for a minute that anybody thought that I'd let that slide without making a comment about it. The total of that particular department adds up to $489,139. Now the funding source for these is dual. Some of the money comes from taxes that are paid through gasoline taxes, and those are for road improvements, maintenance, and things like that. Fine. The other portion of the funding comes from our county property taxes. For those of you who aren't aware, county property taxes are at the discretion of the board to be allocated as they see fit, including being able to pay for staffing. So, if it is that this resolution before us seeks to take money from property taxes, from general fund that the Board of Supervisors could use at their discretion to keep people employed at the expense of, for the sake of buying new vehicles, I've got to say, wait a minute, this doesn't make common sense. There's no way that I could face my constituents that voted for me to protect their interests and look them in the eye and say that I voted for new trucks and dump trucks with property tax money that could be used for staffing, and they're not going to have the ability to put food on the table for their family. I absolutely cannot vote for that. And I would hope that this board, as logical as it may be, to have a sequential replacement of these vehicles and equipment. I'm not disputing the logic of that. I'm saying there's illogic when it comes to the timing because of the funding. If it was completely gas tax funded, I'd say roll with it, go ahead. But if it weren't even $1 of the money from this is coming from property taxes, which is at discretion of the board to use, that could be used for people that are being laid off, forget about it. Nobody should be even considering that right now. My personal vehicle is a 2002 Ford Explorer with 165,000 miles on it. And I get it maintained with Tony Lalo in Valley Springs. And I changed out the alternator belt, the fuel pump, whatever, the hoses, stuff like that to keep it running, and it runs just fine. And I seriously doubt that there's a high percentage of these vehicles